I didn't want to write a script for this video. This is one of those moments where when you sit down, you understand the implications and the feelings you're going to have when you see a movie of this magnitude with the importance it had. But I wasn't prepared to grieve as existentially, as internally, as physically as I think I did, because Wakanda Forever reminded me how much we have lost and how important it is to give yourself space to grieve. In moments like this, it's where the medium of film can be so powerful. It's where the medium of Marvel movies can be so important. And understanding the mantle and the legacy that T'Challa, Chadwick Boseman had on this franchise, on this world, it's really difficult to put into words how important he was to me, how important he was to so many people. And Wakanda Forever had the impossible task of trying to lift up his legacy and keep his mantle moving. And that transitionary period is so difficult to do, which is why the acting in this movie had to be so profound, and it really was. This is one of the best acted movies in the history of Marvel, I want to say in the history of all comic book films. And a quick warning for this video, this one will be spoiler talk. So if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you go see it, obviously, but I also recommend watching at your own discretion, because we're talking spoilers. This was one of the harder ones to watch, you know. It's really difficult to know that T'Challa is not coming back. It's difficult to know that Chadwick Boseman is not going to be able to reprise the role. And one of the strengths of this movie is really making you feel that. It lets you know right off the rip that it's okay to grieve, that we need to take a moment to sit with these feelings. We need to take a moment to remember how important this man was and how important his absence is, and that use of silence is so powerful. And it was really hard to stop myself from crying when I was in the theater, because he means so much to me and meant so much to so many. It's so difficult to put into words how important this film is for the world, because within the first minute or so, you're reminded that when you got the news that Chadwick Boseman died, I feel like a lot of us didn't get a chance to grieve. A lot of us were so wrapped up in the pandemic and the nature of the world and how difficult it was to figure everything out. We forgot that we're going to have to see a rendition of his universe again. And when we eventually do see his universe again, the feelings of that grief come back. The remembering that I never took a moment to pause and reflect, and to see his casket lift up and be removed from Wakanda. I've cried when Tony Stark died. I've cried a couple of times in the MCU, but this was grief. This was me realizing that I didn't address the pain. And along with the actors and the characters in this movie, oftentimes I was the one crying, because we lost our king. We lost so much from the presence of Chadwick Boseman, and giving yourself that space to feel it was so important. And I love that Wakanda Forever focused on the silence of the absence of T'Challa. A lot of times we talk about silence in movies and how it's an important character, how it brings so much depth and nuance to a very important role. And it could not be overstated how immaculate silence was used in this film. From powerful scenes of riveting action and heart-pounding and thunderous sound used to emphasize and hammer home the structure of Talokan, and of course, for the sake of argument, the Atlanteans and Namor, how important that is to show, completely juxtaposed to the silence of Wakanda, dealing with that ominous absence, dealing with that overwhelming dark cloud, and the amount of pain and grief and trauma and all that stuff that goes with it, that is surrounding this culture, this city, this people. It was put on the shoulders of Shuri. It was put on the shoulders of Ramonda. It was put on the shoulders of M'Baku. It was put on the shoulders of Okoye and Nakia. And it is a collective effort of what this story is about. This story of Wakanda, this story of Black Panther Forever, is a collective effort in showing that strength needs to be revealed and needs to be realized together, because you can't grieve alone. It's too difficult. And for a collective people who understand what that pain's like, they're fighting a force in Talokan that is dealing with their own grief, but they have a mantle to channel that through. The mantle was absent in this movie until Shuri picks it up. And Letitia Wright, I mean, my God, just absolutely carries this film. I can't say enough about how good she was as Shuri, how important she was to keeping the tradition of Black Panther alive, how important she was in the emotional weight and maturity she had to bring, because we know in this sequel there was no way anybody's going to think of anything other than T'Challa. There's no way anybody's going to think of anything other than Chadwick Boseman's absence. And for Letitia Wright to understand that she now has to fill shoes that she probably never signed on for, right? She never signed on to be the next Black Panther. She never signed on to be the emotional investment in these films. But that's the situation she has to be in now. These are the spots she has to fulfill because of what's happened. She stepped up to the plate. She carried so much of this movie. And Shuri's entire emotional core of her scientific side and her spiritual side going head to head, and these conflicting ideologies, given everything that's happened, it wouldn't have worked as well as it did if it wasn't not only set up from the beginning when she's trying to save T'Challa, but it wouldn't have worked if Letitia Wright didn't act her ass off. Let's be 100% honest. Not only does Letitia Wright deserve an Oscar nomination for how powerfully she plays this character and how she carries the emotional beats of this film, but so does Angela Bassett. Angela Bassett gives one of the greatest performances in any Marvel movie, I think, ever. I think if there are two people that should win or at least get nominated for Oscars, Angela Bassett and Letitia Wright carry this movie the way that I haven't seen two actors carry a Marvel film since Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans. It's that impactful. It's that important. And this story had so much that it had to tell. This story of Wakanda Forever had so much that had to be rewritten because of Chadwick's passing. It had so much it had to set up and so much that it had to execute on, given the gravity of the situation. And not only emotionally does it pay off with an ability for the audience to finally grieve and go through the motions and the stages of grieving and recovery with these characters, but it gives characters like M'Baku, characters like Nakia, characters like Okoye, characters like Shuri, and characters like Ramonda chances to be those pillars of grieving and those stages of recovery for Shuri. And I think that's one of the biggest highlights of this film is it takes time to invest in what's happened. So much about Marvel is moving forward and moving towards the next thing. And while it's had its faults in phases 4, a lot of phase 4 has been about rebirth. It's been about working through grief, working through pain, and enduring. And this is one of those movies that feels like it's enduring. This is like a Spider-Man movie, right? Where Peter Parker's trying to figure out how he solves this situation, and the only power he really has is his ability to endure. Shuri's only power in this movie was her ability to endure and to learn to let go while giving in to that pain. And it's so beautifully written. The way this movie is shot is truly S-tier Marvel. I think as a package, the way it's polished, the music, the scores, the action, the set pieces, the writing, all that stuff, I think as a package, this is the best Phase 4 film. I will look at No Way Home and Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness. Like, I will watch those movies probably more and enjoy those over time as like fun popcorn movies way more, because as much as I'm going to see this movie again and Wakanda Forever is going to stay with me, it's a difficult movie to watch. It's a long movie. It's a difficult movie to constantly reinvest in because so much of it is about grief, because so much of it is about coming to terms with everything that relates to death, with everything that relates to Chadwick's passing, with everything that relates to the reorchestration of this geopolitical landscape because of the way the world works now. Everything had to be reoriented, knowing that Black Panther was supposed to be kind of the nucleus for phases 4, 5, and 6. Now that he's gone, how do we continue that mantle? It's important to continue that mantle. And how does the world look within Marvel? Wakanda is now under attack from various outside forces. You have a destabilizing act of T'Challa's passing. How do you deal with that? There is so much in movement now because of Black Panther leaving. And the way that Shuri carries that and deals with those ramifications, it's so beautifully done in this movie. And there's a reason I didn't want to write a script, because I feel like I will get to a point where I'll dissect this movie for themes, but this needed to be a raw reaction. This needed to be raw emotion. And I'm just so grateful that Ryan Coogler and the team put their heart and soul into this film and really made it feel as powerful and as impactful as I think it needed to be, because audiences needed to feel like this was a serious subject, because it was. We didn't need extra cameos with Doctor Doom in the end. We didn't need a comedy. We needed Marvel to do what it does best, which is tell the story of people struggling to be a hero. That's what Marvel's always been. It's been the story of people struggling to be heroic. And So much of this movie was people just struggling. People struggling to find their way and figure out what it means to be a hero, and using that anger and that anguish and that pain and that trauma to push themselves forward. It's nonstop. Now, the movie does have certain moments where, you know, we jump from location to location from time to time. Certainly there are moments where that's a bit jarring, but I think that it's so poignant that we cover so much ground, and yet the most interesting parts of the movie really are when we're focusing on the personalities and the personal relationships, dynamics within Wakanda. Not only is T'Challa Khan great to see, and I think that Namor was done extremely well, and they show his powers beautifully and how he can be a threat as well, but I found the most interesting story to be about the relationships between the tribes of Wakanda and feeling how that world is now grieving and how they're dealing with everything they're dealing with. And I just can't say enough about what this film really accomplished. I think it does a lot for reinstating that Marvel can hit those serious tones, because a lot of Phase 4 has been, let's have something a little bit more upbeat, let's have something a little bit more poppy, and that's great, and we've certainly had our moments of downtime, but this film needed to take itself seriously, and it absolutely did. And I can't say enough about how much it hit me, how much it made me realize that I needed to take time to remember Chadwick Boseman. I needed to take time to remember that we lost someone really, really, really important to us. All of us lost a character, an icon, a mantle that means so much to Marvel, that means so much to us as well. And if we want to get into the discussion of should they recast Black Panther, I've had opinions on both sides, and I've seen a lot of people have opinions as well. And I think this movie sets it up in a really interesting way, in a way that I would have done it, because I don't think recasting Black Panther needed to happen immediately, because this isn't like a situation with General Ross, where General Ross was a side character in the universe, but it's pretty easy to recast him. We needed time to grieve as an audience, as a fan base, as a people, as a planet. Like, Chadwick Boseman meant so much to so many people. Recasting him immediately in the following film would have been a mistake. We needed time to grieve, to work through this, and we needed to feel his absence. We needed to feel the weight of his presence that is missing, and we did that. But we also do need to recast the mantle of Black Panther. And though we do get it in this film a little bit, I don't know if Shuri's going to continue being the Black Panther in this universe. I hope she does, because I think in this film, Shuri really earns her right, especially with the way she confronts her own angers and her own frustrations when she sees Killmonger in the ancestral plane. It's a fantastic way to use a cameo to show where Shuri's coming from. Again, she's using the scientific and spiritual sides of her brains that are conflicting and trying to figure out the right path forward. That is where I found so much weight in this movie, and how perfectly Killmonger was used to show Shuri's path. I think Shuri's Black Panther would be a fantastic addition to this universe, but I also think having the mantle of T'Challa is just as important as having the mantle of Black Panther, because a lot like how we look at Spider-Man as Peter Parker, or we look at the importance of Captain America because he was Steve Rogers, and Sam Wilson's going to do a fantastic job, no question. But when we looked at Captain America, the reason it feels like a lot of the heart of Marvel is missing right now is because Steve was that heart. T'Challa is the soul, the essence, the heart of Black Panther, and not giving him or that to the fans, especially for a character that means so much to so many people on this planet, a character that is as massive as an African American representative in this scale of this kind of universe. It was huge for the culture. It was massive, and the people themselves deserve that. Everybody who's looked up to Black Panther, everybody who's been impacted by Black Panther, the Black community, the world community needs a T'Challa, because T'Challa was the soul, the heart of Black Panther, and he was very much the mantle. And having him recast is, I think, a necessary step into continuing the story, because we all know T'Challa's story doesn't end here, and it'd be a great way to keep the legacy of Black Panther moving, along with our Earth 616 Shuri, which I think would be a fantastic addition in general, just to have as a Black Panther essence. And the way they set this all up with one of the greatest, I want to say flat out now, the greatest post-credit scene in Marvel history, after we get that wonderful morning on the beach, and we get a chance to breathe and to feel Shuri starting to grow and accept the situation, then you get the introduction of Nakia's kid as Toussaint, but also T'Challa. And not only does the kid look like Chadwick's kid, but he looks like the embodiment of what will become the next Black Panther. And that's the perfect way to introduce the extension of this mantle, to introduce the continuation of the Black Panther story, because iconography is such an important part of Wakanda. It's such an important part of being Black Panther. It's the status, the symbol, the idea, the presence, the aura, the atmosphere. And we get that with his child. and we can watch him grow up and hopefully potentially become that mantle. But it now gives us a chance to have a direct emotional connection, a canonical through line into this universe again. And that's not even including the opportunities that exist because of the multiverse, because of Secret Wars coming up, where you can already start a recast through the multiverse. And that's one of the greatest exit strategies that Marvel now has, is that the timing of this is terrible because of Chadwick's passing, but we have an answer, and that's through the multiverse, which is just as acceptable as anything, but also from the introduction of his son. And the way that they wrap these up, when the end credits are hitting and that mid-credit scene starts rolling, at the beginning, you're crying because you're feeling the grief. You're feeling the loss, and it's hard to feel real because Chadwick's gone and Black Panther is gone. But in the end credit scene, you're crying because you know that Chadwick isn't here. You know the Black Panther might live again, and you see his son. You see the embodiment of hope. You see the embodiment of living through death and the stepping off point that now can exist, and how we can begin the rebirth process and the reinvention process. And that hope makes you cry for a very different reason. And it's such a beautiful bookend from the start of the film to the end of the film. I was just in awe. I was in absolute awe. I mean, so much of this film just leaves you speechless with the representations they give, with the angles they bring. I didn't even talk about Riri Williams, which I think she did a phenomenal job. I think Ironheart is going to be a fantastic character. I love the actress, her portrayal. She's so funny, down to earth. But so much of this film felt so personal, and there are moments where it gets a little out of scope, right? There are moments where it feels like it's getting a little bit bigger than it needs to, but I really liked that this movie went deeper into Marvel without expanding it. It went deeper into Talokan and deeper into Wakanda and the culture and the people, and it went deeper into the relationship that it has in the world and the geopolitical landscape, which is what Marvel does really well, without it just expanding out for characters and characters and characters, which has been a lot of Phase 4. This was a very difficult film. This was a tough film to watch because, like I've said before, so much of it is so good. So much of it's so real. And it was nice to be able to grieve with the actors. You can feel the actors' pain. You can feel them missing the presence of T'Challa. But you have to give credit to Shuri. You have to give credit to Queen Ramonda. Letitia Wright just killed it. Letitia Wright should be nominated for an Oscar. She carried this film emotionally with her presentation, her poise, her confidence, her professionalism so much. She was just, I can't say enough. It's hard to see a character carry a film this well, and she did it. I don't have enough words to compliment Letitia Wright for what she did, and Angela Bassett just makes you feel that weight. Angela Bassett makes you feel that loss, and it's reinforced time and time again, and it was important for Ryan Coogler to show that it needed to be reinforced. We needed to feel that pain and anguish over and over and over again because this is such a monumental loss. The score is incredible. The action is some of the best in Marvel, really. Like, it's so well shot, so well choreographed, really back to the action we expect from Marvel. The themes they hit on of rebirth, reinvention, agony, recovery, grief, working through trauma, etc. is beautifully realized and beautifully imagined. The arc of Shuri as a character becoming her own Black Panther, I think, is phenomenal. Using Killmonger as a catalyst was brilliant. I love the fact that we bring back Nakia. I love the fact that M'Baku is there to be somewhat of a guiding cousin to Shuri. There's so much thrown at you. And is this movie perfect? Absolutely not. But when it comes to reestablishing the baseline for Marvel and getting Marvel back to that serious nature that it's had before that worked so well, this was a vitally important movie and came at such an important time, because we know that Ant-Man's coming up and how that can be a very fun but also dark experience with what Kang's gonna do and what we expect to happen in that movie. But we needed to feel the realism again. We needed to feel the world impact and the impact that it has on us as an audience. And I'm just so grateful that this movie exists, because it allowed me to grieve. This movie allowed me to grieve for the passing of Black Panther. And it's very difficult to not tear up when thinking about it. I cried a lot in the theater. It's something I will admit, of course, but yeah, I just don't have enough words. This movie was so vitally important to so many of us, and Black Panther is so vitally important to all of us, man. He's such a good character. Chadwick Boseman was a phenomenal actor, and the actors in this movie had the unbearable weight of trying to carry this universe and step into a role that nobody wanted to step into. And you can feel everything they're feeling in this movie. It's just, this is what movies do. They connect you. The empathy you should have is off the charts. I can't say enough about this film. Again, it's not perfect, but it's damn near close, and it really, really makes you feel everything you need to feel. So that's my thoughts. I might do a video breaking down more themes, and I probably will, because I want to talk more about recasting T'Challa and talk more about the importance of Black Panther on the global culture and what he means to so many people. But this was a hard movie to watch, and I still can't stop thinking about it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that you've enjoyed the past couple of videos. Make sure to check out the Darth Vader tribute and the Darth Vader breakdown I just did. Very proud with that one. I would love to know your thoughts on Wakanda Forever. I'd love to know your thoughts on Black Panther 2. This one hurt, but it was a good pain. And damn, I just missed T'Challa. But Shuri killed it. And as always, thanks for watching.